Hello, everybody, and welcome to Grim Scenarios. I'm your host, Milk, here with, as always, your other host, Emma. Hello, Emma.
Hello, Milk.
And our special guest this week, Ruth from Rose City Clocktower. Hello, Ruth.
Hello.
And of course, what better way to hang out with someone from Rose City than to talk about a character related to flowers, which of course is the poppy grower. We're going to be talking about the poppy grower this week.
Yeah, the poppy grower's ability, of course, is minions and demons do not know each other. If they die, they learn who each other are that night. The poppy grower prevents the evil players from learning who each other are. And its flavor text is, in the hidden groves, the deep forest, the black poppy dwells. To see its revelry is to be enchanted. To see its thick aroma is to be lost forever. A slave to the gods of light and dark.
We like to throw it to our guest immediately for characters.
Okay.
Ruth, what do you, we're not going to get into anything too deep yet, but what are your, sort of basic thoughts about the poppy grower? You know, where do you stand on poppy grower?
So I think that the poppy grower, a lot of the time when you are evil and you are in a poppy grower game and you find that out, a lot of people have a tendency to be like, oh no, this is gonna, oh no, I'm very nervous about this, especially people who are newer to it. But I want to encourage everybody to give the poppy grower a good chance, even if it seems intimidating. A lot of my favorite games have involved poppy growers, whether I was good or evil. It just makes for, I think, a lot of the time more interesting play, more interesting play patterns. It shakes things up in a really fun way. And as evil, just enjoy it. As good, try to figure out why everyone's acting so weird. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of poppy grower games myself. I do think it's it's a character that I don't know, when we sort of first got it way back in the olden times, I felt like every single game I played in had a poppy grower on the script, and I feel like we've all gotten to a better, healthier place with poppy grower now, where it's not in every game you play. But I do think it's a really interesting mechanic to take that uninformed majority versus informed minority kind of relationship that's at the core of Blood on the Clocktower and turn it into an uninformed majority against an uninformed minority. It's a really neat change to kind of make to the core structure of the game.
The core of Blood on the Clocktower is it's a logic puzzle where a bunch of people are trying to solve the logic puzzle before a clock runs out. And unbeknownst to them, a small part, well, known to them, but unbeknownst to, there's a small party of people who already know the answer to the puzzle, and they're trying to disrupt the solution to the puzzle before the clock ends. And that's not just Blood on the Clocktower, that's all social deduction games. That is what the social deduction game is to its core. So anytime you have a character that fundamentally changes that dynamic, it is a character that must be treated with caution. It creates a very different gameplay and a very different experience. And it means that one of the two teams, whenever you disrupt that core, starts off at a significant disadvantage. The poppy grower breaks one of the fundamental rules of social deduction. The informed minority, as Milk said, doesn't get to know each other, which means they can't work cohesively as a unit to disrupt the normally uninformed players from reach and solve. And just as we talked about it, just bear that in mind. And to my knowledge, statistically, this is proven out. This is the strongest townsfolk of the game. It breaks a fundamental rule in favor of one team and puts the other team at a significant disadvantage. So, whenever you're thinking of poppy grower, start with there. Is everything but the game has to be rethought, knowing that if you just toss a poppy grower onto a trouble brewing type system, the evil team lacks the tools to deal with the poppy grower environment. Because that's not what those tools are there for.
Yeah, I think it probably bears out that just throwing poppy grower onto TB, probably the evil team is going to lose most of the time, right? It's just going to be unbalancing.
Mm-hmm.
Got a couple jinxes real quickly just to go through, just try to cover those real quick. The poppy grower is jinxed with Spy and Widow. the Poppy Grower jinx with Spy and Widow is basically the same for both. If the Poppy Grower has their ability, the Spy/Widow does not see the Grim. So the Spy or Widow doesn't see the Grim until the Poppy Grower ability leaves play. Poppy Grower is also jinxed with the Marionette. It's just jinxed to maintain the Marionette's you think you are status. So it's when the Poppy Grower dies, the demon learns the Marionette, but the Marionette learns nothing. So the Marionette
is it still jinxed with Marionette?
It is still jinxed with Marionette. Yeah. I pulled these off of the updated jinx list. So
okay.
Yeah. So the Marionette doesn't learn that they're a minion when the Poppy Grower leaves play, which is consistent with the thinks you are type roles. It's still jinxed with Lil Monster. If Lil Monster and the Poppy Grower are both alive, minions wake one by one until one of them chooses to take the Lil Monster token, which is just a basically simple way of handling minions not knowing each other. And then last, Poppy Grower is jinxed with Summoner. If the Poppy Grower is alive on the third night, the Summoner chooses which demon, but not which player. The Storyteller chooses what player becomes the demon. Those are all more or less kind of mechanical jinxes that just sort of make the Poppy Grower's ability work in these various circumstances. There's nothing really spicy about them. Poppy Grower used to be jinxed with Cannibal. It's no longer jinxed with Cannibal. That jinx has been removed. And I think the only thing else maybe just worth mentioning at this point is that Stephen Medway released an optional rule for Poppy Grower in August of this year, of 2025, which is if the Poppy Grower becomes drunk, poisoned, or leaves play, minions and demons learn who each other are that night. This in some way sort of replaces the very sort of popular bootlegger kind of homebrew rule that was used previously where a poisoned Poppy Grower that dies, still the evil team learns each other. This just means that whenever the Poppy Grower's ability goes out of play, the evil team learns each other. So poisoning a Poppy Grower using this optional rule would reveal the evil team to one another without the Poppy Grower dying, effectively. And we could discuss the merits of this, optional rule throughout the episode. So I guess it's probably a good point for us to just jump right into how do you play the Poppy Grower? What do you do when you see that token flip around or pull it out of the bag? Where do we start with Poppy Grower?
Yeah, I think Poppy Grower. I'm not saying these are the only ways to do it, but essentially there's 3 ways people play Poppy Grower. One is they play it similar how they tend to play fortune teller type roles, where they're trying to bluff in ways that won't get them killed. So they can stay alive as long as possible and mess up the evil team that way. However you bluff when you're trying to stay alive, which is something people start learning with Fortune Teller and Beth and Undertaker, so I always go to those as my example. And there's, whole avenues of levels of bluffs and double bluffs you do when you're those roles to try to stay alive longer. But that's Avenue 1. Avenue 2 is you try to get evils out to you. That's some people's natural inclinations with rules like this, and it's certainly an option people take. The 3 is you just sort of do nothing with the role. In particular, you don't try to introduce false information to talented bluffs. You don't necessarily say you're the Poppy Grower, but you don't particularly pretend to be anything else. And you just rely on the fact that, you exist and the evil team's a little screwed. Does anyone else think there's any other, broad paths for Poppy Growers to go besides those 3?
I think you covered it pretty well. You can try to find a monk, or probably not an innkeeper if you're playing with the optional rule to help you stay alive longer. You can do different things. It obviously, varies widely depending on what kind of game you're in. Like, you're probably going to handle things really differently if you're in a Leviathan game versus normal. But I think that Emma covered the broad play patterns really well.
Maybe we can just kind of take them one by one is a way to sort of approach it. I think like the first one, try to stay alive, kind of approach to playing the Poppy Grower. I think it's the most straightforward, right? You have a powerful role, it's disrupting the evil team. Try to stay alive. I remember a particular game where I tried to do this on the TPI stream, where I bluffed the Pixie Poppy Grower and just claimed to be the Pixie Poppy Grower who wasn't interested in getting my ability, and basically just claimed that the entire game. And the evil team, for the most part, just left me alone. They did frame me in Final 3, which was very successful. So you do have to be careful, obviously, with you come with all the complications of the of any powerful role that's trying to look like a less powerful role or trying to look like a demon bane. But broadly speaking, I think it's as effective as it is with any other role. I wonder if people are a little too precious with it in terms of Poppy Grower. Poppy Grower does a lot of its work in like the first 2 days, disrupting the evil team's bluffing ability, disrupting their ability to sort of build cohesive worlds. I don't know. What do you think? Is it maybe that people just try to hang on too long as the Poppy Grower?
I do think people try to hang on too long as the Poppy Grower. Like, I think by day 3, you're very much into diminishing returns. Like, there's a decent chance, and again, especially if the optional rule is in effect, like, there's a decent chance that evil players have found each other and have started to figure things out, whether that's because a star pass happens or people just take a risk and are like, I think you're on my team. Like, a lot of the time by day 3 or by day 4, you're just not nearly as effective, and you start to become a liability when you become frameable.
Yeah. I would say, like, the amount you want to abandon shit probably depends to a degree on how much of the other telltale signs of a Poppy Grower are present. And a lot of those are going to be what happens in voting day 1. In Poppy Grower games, it tends to be significantly harder for anyone to get on the block day 1. Because the evil team tends to be much more hesitant to vote than they normally would be. And it's just like a small switch. You normally can't tell you which players are evil because everyone's always reluctant to vote some of the time day 1. No matter who they are, what role they are, what team they're on. But normally evil will sneak some votes in there occasionally to try to get good players executed early. And when Poppy Grower happens, that becomes a lot less prevalent because the minions in particular become really nervous about accidentally executing their demon. So if it's feeling very Poppy Grower early, you have a longer leash to lie. Because when you inevitably back into Poppy Grower, people will be like, yeah, that makes sense. It's a Poppy Grower game. I already knew that. You're the one claiming Poppy Grower. You're probably good. I think if you have an evil team that's, I don't want to say better at the game, but a little more risk-taking, a little more, let's say risk-taking. That's a nice neutral term. People think risk-taking is bad. This is a whole tangent I'm going to go on now, and I'm going to rant about it.
I'm fine with it.
People think risk-taking is bad. To a degree,
It's not.
and this is a human psychological misunderstanding of costs and benefits. People think risks are worse than they are. Almost universally. And that includes in Clocktower. People learn about a risk and they overreact to the risk and they become overcautious. And they never stop to think, wait, what's the risk of being overcautious? And in fact, being overcautious is always a risk in and of itself. There's always some harm that happens from being overcautious. The obvious Clocktower example of this is the same, because it's the first one everyone learns, where someone says, "Oh, I'm the saint, you can't execute me because you'll lose." And then 5 days later, you have a poisoned mare in Final 3 because the saint is still around, who was the poisoner all the time, this whole time, even though you had like 10,000 reasons to think they might be an evil player bluffing saint. You're like, "Oh, we'll just handle the saint later, that's too scary." And the answer is sometimes you should lose to saint claims. You should lose saint losses to prevent evil from being able to bluff saint lazily. So this is my giant spiel of risk. When you approach a risk, you need to think about the risks of both the bad consequence of the risk happening and the bad consequences of you spending too much time trying to prevent the risk from happening. So, evil players. Now I am going to say that risk-taking wasn't a neutral term, goddammit. Evil players should be a little more risky with their votes in day one of a poker girl game, including minions.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You should not be trying to avoid the risk that you accidentally vote your demon at all costs. Like, accidentally voting on your demon day one of a poker girl game is an acceptable risk you should take to executing someone else who might even be the pocket grower. So, but because of those psychological predilections of human beings I mentioned at the start, people are never going to be as risky as they should be. They're always, on average, risk averse to a fault.
Yeah, I want to follow up your rant with a different rant. So first off, I want to say this happened to me last week. Like, I was in a game, somebody outed to me as poppy grower. I believed them. Like, they seemed like they were telling the truth. And I watched the voting, and I saw somebody voting in a way that I thought was suspicious, and we killed them, and it was an oho. Like, that it happens all the time. It's really predictable. So keep in mind that risk of experienced players noticing the poppy grower voting and nominating into it is just as risky as you killing your demon.
Oh yeah. And if you're the demon, it's not the end of the world if one of your minions gets executed because you voted on them. Especially if you're the demon. Throw caution to the wind and just vote on shit like it's a normal game.
And kind of going along with this, something I want to say about poppy grower games to evil teams. Like, sometimes it will be a shit show. Like, sometimes evil players will die one after another. The demon will be suspicious. The Scarlet Woman didn't have a bluff and it went poorly. Like, you won't be backing each other up. It will blow up. It'll go badly. That's true. That happens. Like, you are right. That is a danger. But you know when else that happens? All of the time. Normal games. Sometimes things go wrong and things go bad and you just get beaten badly. It happens an amount more in poppy grower games, but that risk is always there. So just like kind of relax and like be okay with maybe taking some risky plays even though you don't know who your backup is and just like try to have fun. I at DCCon last year, I was the poppy grower. I was in a game, and on night 2, Ryback star passed, reasonably wanting to find some of his team. And then the night after, the new imp, it was a 3 minion game, also star passed, trying to find the team. And they star passed into the void. We had already killed the minions. Like, they lost. It was very fast. It was very silly. And you know what Ryback did? He laughed. He thought it was funny. He had a good time. We all had a good time. It was a memorable game that we enjoyed, even though it was fast. Like, everyone enjoyed themselves, and that's what matters.
And there's a difference, like, and I want to just, I'm not pushing back on the make risky plays line of thought, but there's a difference between doing things that are risky for no reason and doing things that are risky with reason. If you have a read on somebody that they're a good player and your vote is going to get them killed on day one in a poppy grower game, absolutely just vote on them. Like, don't even ask yourself that question if you're an evil player. But, if you think someone might be your demon, maybe, think about not voting on them, because even though that risk might pay off, they might not die, they might not get put on the block, there's a bunch of other people you can put that risk on. So, like, manage your risk at your own pace. people should push themselves to play more risky. I think, and this is a soapbox that I get on quite regularly. I think evil players and evil teams don't take enough risks on sex and violence. This is not related to Poppy Grower. I think sex and violence requires evil teams to use their abilities to make big plays. And I think most of the time players aren't taking big enough risks in sex and violence, aren't trying to do enough. Ruth famously said of me, she knew I was evil because I was doing stuff once. And I think you have to be doing stuff with your abilities. And the Poppy Grower game scenario where you don't know who your team is encourages that more because it creates more disruption. You can re-disrupt back into the good team by playing in a risky manner. You can just out evil. Like, your evil teammates can find you that way, potentially. A good player can just out evil to try to get evil players to come over and say, oh, are you evil with us? Like, there's a lot you can do in that structure, but you can only do it if you're willing to take risks.
Anyway. So where we started, where we were before we went on all these tangents, was the more your group is, the more the signs of a Poppy Grower game, the signs of overcautious evil teams, or cautious evil teams to be less judgmental about it, are there, the more it looks like Poppy Grower in the voting. That's more permission to you as the Poppy Grower to try to bluff other stuff to stay alive. Because you're not going to... When you fall back into Poppy Grower, people will believe you. Because the less of that's going on, the more that you should probably abandon this, because you might be doing more harm than good.
Yeah. If nobody's talking about, hey, it seems like a Poppy Grower game by day 2 or 3, you're probably not going to be able to come out as the Poppy Grower and go, oh, I'm confirmed good because the Poppy Grower game. So I wanted to ask, what are some of the active things that you can do what are some of the active kinds of plays? We talked about, sort of the defensive, like, let me stay alive as long as possible. What are some active plays that you can make? What are some active things you can do as the Poppy Grower to use your role to your advantage? The evil team doesn't know each other. So what sorts of things can you do?
Yeah. So, like, the first line one, which you mentioned earlier, is you can try to trick people into outing to you. This is probably more common with the Poppy Grower's cousin, the Magician.
Yeah.
But people try it in Poppy Grower games, too. And I think I'll reserve my further thoughts on this so other people have had a chance to speak.
One thing is you can push people for hard claims in a way that you don't, that it will seem weird if they back out later, because that might be a minion who got cornered. Like, you can be like, hey, what can I gamble you as? And if people are good players are more, like, I'm not saying that I love this play pattern and do it, but like, one that you can do is try to get people to hard claim, and then when they back out later, you have a greater degree of certainty that was a minion who didn't have a bluff to go with.
I've tested basically every version of being the evil player that tells a good player in a Poppy Grower game, Magician game, whatever, Ogre game, that you think that I trust you, that you're evil with me. And it has failed 99% of the time. It is not a good choice to out to people who are trying to get you to out to them, especially if you're the demon. So here are some rules. If you are a minion and you want to out to someone that you are a minion because you think they might be on your evil team with you, in a Poppy Grower game, you can't tell them who else is on your evil team, but don't even tell them who you think is on your evil team. Don't confirm that it's a Poppy Grower game. That's probably a good choice too, because that's going to confirm the Poppy Grower. Might be the Poppy Grower you're talking to, right? Do as little confirmation as possible. Basically say, yes, I'm evil. Lie about which evil you are. Like, that's perfectly okay too. Like, you don't have to hard trust a person. Like, you can like soft trust a person. You can soft out evil to someone. You can string them along back. But for the most part, this play pattern isn't particularly fun. And the best defense against it is to just not go for it.
One of the first games I played with Milk was a Poppy Grower game. I was the Vortox. Milk was the Ceranovis. Milk got a good read on the Grim and was like, all right, I don't think these people are my demon. And on day 2 came to me and we had a lovely, lovely conversation. We both claimed Goblin at each other a bunch and we left that conversation feeling very clear that I was the demon and Milk was a minion. I didn't know if he was the Goblin or something else. It was lovely, and like we never at any point acknowledged that we were on each other's team. It was just a very jokey conversation that at the end of which like we knew that we were on the same team.
Right. It's going to come down to your social read on this person in the end, regardless. So there's no reason for you to give them any more information than you need to. Right. That's the thought. You can go all in. That's one way to do it. Just go all in, tell them what you are, tell them what you're doing, and hope that you're right. But most of the time I have found that is not a good way for you to win the game.
All right, so anyway, back to the Poppy Grower and how to play the Poppy Grower.
Yes.
I'm going to offer my spiel on trying to get people to out to you. One, it doesn't work. Most people who are highly skilled at the game and are playing Poppy Grower strips regularly aren't gonna out to someone until the Poppy Grower is dead. So most of the time it doesn't work. It makes you seem more suspicious to your good players. You look more like an evil player bluffing Poppy Grower than you are likely to get a evil player to out to you. And when it does work, it generally feels bad. It generally works because someone is in some sort of emotional state where they want you to be on their team, so they put reason aside. Either because they want to be evil with you, or they're new to playing Poppy Grower and they're scared. And you tricking them ain't gonna feel good for them at the game. So, 1, it rarely works. 2, when it works, it's frequently locked in with some feel-bad emotions. So I'm not going to say you can't play the Poppy Grower or you want to. My professional recommendation, don't try to trick people into outing evil to you as the Poppy Grower. It's probably going to backfire, and when it doesn't, it's going to feel bad.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I generally agree with that, with not trying to catfish people most of the time, unless I'm the magician, in which case I want to.
But you can use your knowledge that the evil team doesn't know each other to your advantage in other ways, right? For example, right, you can keep an eye out for people who are very, very soft in their claims, right? Who are very hesitant to make a hard claim, who are giving you evil social reads or seem to be fishing for your alignment, right? Those are all things that you as the Poppy Grower are going to be aware of, right? That knowledge that the evil team doesn't know each other is a big advantage to you specifically. Players, you can remember things like maybe there's a Ceranovis on the script. Players who are Ceranovis mad, if you're the Poppy Grower, they're not confirmed good. That's not evil players picking targets. That's evil players picking at random, right? So, thinking about things like that, thinking about the fact that that the evil team doesn't know each other. There are a lot of play patterns. There's a lot of like things that town talks about, right? Town talks about like evil coordination sometimes, and that evil's not coordinating as the Poppy Grower, right? So you can be more dismissive of those worlds, or more critical, not dismissive, critical of those kinds of worlds that would require the evil team to coordinate well. I think one of the advantages of Poppy Grower is really built in there, of your knowledge that the evil team's probably not coordinating. If somebody says, "Oh, that person got DA protected, they must be evil," or whatever, and there's a perfect coordination, one person nominated the other, that must be the DA nominating demon, right? If you're the Poppy Grower, that's just not the case. A question I had about Poppy Grower is, what can you do as the Poppy Grower, or what should you look for as the Poppy Grower after you die? So once you die, your ability goes out of play. What sorts of things might you think about, or what sorts of things might you be looking for after you die?
Normally I don't advocate whisper tracking, but after you die is a decent chance time to whisper track, especially in person.
Yeah.
Especially if you've had a social read on someone. Just glance over at their conversations that day, after you've died, maybe the next day, and see if there's any conversations that look a little odd. And again, this is mostly for in-person. Online, not really worth it. Players frequently won't rush off to their demon to get a bluff as soon as the poker guard dies, because if it's like day 3 or day 4, well, 1, who cares? 2, who cares? 3, who cares? You're probably not going to switch to what you're playing at this point anyway. Like, the important thing for evil is knowing who not to vote on now. Or knowing what information they don't have to worry about anymore. But people will talk to each other. They'll want to coordinate some things. And in person, you can just take a quick glance at anyone you think was evil and see what they're up to. Don't focus it on too much, but it's worth it in person. Yeah, in person, I think, like... In person, it can be, like, evil conversations can look very different from good conversations. Players can be quieter, they can be more, like, they can be less bombastic, so just, like, take a look around.
Oh, wait, I was going to say something and it dropped out of my head. Yeah, and, like, see, the day after you die, who has switched who they want to kill? Like, who didn't want to kill that person yesterday but really wants to today? They might now know that that person is good.
Or on their team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The one I always look for is people who do big info dumps after the poppy grower dies, who, like, make a big claim change and then, like, do a big info dump that all of a sudden, oh, actually, I wasn't the noble. I was a fortune teller this whole time, and here's all of my information. And wow, it just happens to clear these specific people. What do you know? I find that one pops up quite a lot with poppy grower after you die.
Also, listen to other people's info. Did the general not change if they are, was evil winning and now good is winning? That seems suspicious. You should look at that general. I don't know about that. Like, stuff like that, like where the info doesn't match what has happened. And the fact that evil can coordinate better now.
Shall we move on to... This is normally when we talk about how to bluff, and I do think we should talk about...
No, we're not moving on to that.
Sorry.
Yet.
Sorry.
As we said at the start of this section, there's like sort of 3 paths.
Oh, I forgot about the third pattern, yeah.
Yeah. And this is probably my preferred pattern for playing as the poppy grower. Take a slightly more passive role. If people ask what you are, tell them that you're the poppy grower. Just sort of vibe with it. Like, you've done your job already. You've disrupted the early game for the evil team. And you don't need to be throwing out a bunch of fake information to try to avoid getting killed. You don't need to be trying to make it to Final 3. In Final 3, it doesn't matter as much. Poppy grower and off, Final 3 is going to be pretty similar. And, like, if you tell someone you're the poppy grower, then you immediately die the next night. Maybe that's something you can build into. If you're trying to look like the fortune teller and you died, if you're bluffing like you bluff how when you're the fortune teller, maybe you died because they thought you were the fortune teller because you were bluffing how you bluff when you're the fortune teller. It's much easier to track the information of who killed me because of my role if you've told people what your role is.
It's very true.
And especially in a popular game where it's not like you can tell a minion and they can run off to their demon, like this Baron again to the imp when you tell them Baron you're the fortune teller. Tell the Baron you're the Poppygar, the Baron will be like, damn, I wish I knew who my keeper was so I could tell them to kill this bitch.
Yeah, it's pretty fair.
So I would encourage people to, and there's no right or wrong, but appreciate like playing Poppygar more face up, more passively, and not get worried about like, oh no, what if the evil team finds out on the Poppygar? Who cares? Your main effect is you repped day one for the evil team. Congratulations. You've already accomplished it. If you want to think of yourself as like a Baron in this way, think of yourself as like a Baron in this way. There's lots of different ways a Baron can play. One of them is just trying to seem like a normal good player who's honest about their role. Your role happens to be Poppygar, but you can be a normal good player who's honest about your role as the Poppygar.
One of the passive benefits to mechanical non-information roles is that if you get killed, and a lot of them do kind of want to get killed, if you get killed, that's a night that the demon's not killing an information roll. You're kind of tanking, that kill with your body and letting a fortune teller, oracle, empath, whatever, get that information that they otherwise wouldn't have. So sort of saying that you're the Poppygar, you can also just sort of put a target on your back and absorb a kill. It's kind of fine. Now the evil team also is going to have to spend the whole next day trying to figure out how to talk to each other, trying to coordinate stuff, and they may not even get around to it. In in-person games, it's often very difficult to actually get around to your team on that day. So they may not even all get get all the information.
Also, a lot of the time, you're just going to look like the Banshee.
Yeah. You look like a demon bane who's trying to get killed. It's really fair.
Yeah.
Okay. We have gone quite a while on how to play. So any other thoughts on this, or shall we move on to how to bluff? Yeah, I think how to bluff is interesting, and we don't usually talk about how to fight good characters, but we may talk just a little bit here about what evil players kind of, what they can do with this bluff and how they what they can do in an actual Poppygar game. So, okay, you're an evil player, you're in a non-Poppy Grower game, it's not in play. First of all, it's often a free bluff that your team has.
I'm just gonna just because something is a free bluff doesn't mean you as a minion should run with it. And I would say Poppygrower is one where if you're planning to bluff Poppygrower, probably let your fellow evils know, because you want it to look like a Poppygrower game, which means there's generally going to be reduced voting. So if you're the demon who wants to bluff Poppygrower, I'll let your minions know, so they maybe vote like minions in a Poppygrower game where their hand is glued to their side. If you're a minion who wants to bluff Poppygrower,
probably less important.
Consider the concerns that might have, the voting like your evil player might have for your demon, who will then get sussed out, and maybe wonder whether you should just avoid the free bluff.
Yeah, you don't have to take it just because it's there, and it's more likely that a minion is going to try to grab this because the demon has, of course, the bluffs already. So, I agree with that 100%.
It can be very hard to get an evil player who has fallen into the Poppygrower bluff when day one voting was weird for any reason killed. Like,
yes,
if a minion like identifies that pattern, that can happen for a lot of reasons. Like it can just be because like people aren't feeling assertive that day. It can just be because the people who are more likely to push on their info don't have info roles and are like hanging back a bit. Like it is actually really easy to fall into the pattern of poppy grower voting, and especially if Legion is on the script, like Legion voting and afraid of Legion voting and poppy grower voting look very similar a lot of the time.
Mm.
Um,
It's like they're
if
synergistic characters that are meant to be together.
yeah,
That's
um,
public information. I could say that. It's been public for like 7 years.
but yeah, if a minion realizes that bluff is viable and falls into it, it can be so hard to get them killed. People don't like killing poppy growers when they think that you're the poppy grower. Something
And
to,
day one
sorry,
voting was weird. Yeah.
yeah. Something to watch out for is, does everyone know that person is the poppy grower and they're still alive? Interesting. That's one of the signs that's actually an evil player. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes a really compelling fallback bluff as well. Like if you don't get a bluff from your demon, you just kind of grab something random, you end up in a double claim, whatever. Maybe you're okay with just being in that situation, but if for whatever reason you need to fall back, if there's an imp that wants to pass you or something like that, falling back into Poppy Grower can be very compelling too. Because again, as we mentioned, in many of the play patterns for Poppy Grower, the role isn't claimed openly, right? And so it's something where you could kind of get away with claiming some other stuff and then kind of falling back into it. And it's a great fallback bluff for a demon who suddenly starts to look suspicious, to go, hey, I'm a poppy grower. You know, you need to buy that night to pull the ejection levers as the imp or whatever. You know, sometimes that's a useful just 1 day claim, or it's just a useful thing to buy a little time.
It's also a really good bluff for like a goblin or a boom dandy or something that early on is trying to make use of their ability and get killed, and then realizes that they're gonna need to be the demon later in the game. Like maybe you find out that imp is gonna pass to you. Maybe you find out, oh no, I've been barber swapped. Awkward. That is a pretty like believable thing for you to shift into.
Yeah, I think most of the time, I don't really see evil players aggressively come out and say that they're the poppy grower early. It's not like a face up bluff in that way. And so you can think about bluffs in a couple of different ways. One of the ways you could think about them is, what am I going to claim on day one? You can also think about them in terms of, okay, I'm going to claim something on day one. What am I? That's fine. She'll be back. So you could think about it in terms of, what am I going to claim on day one versus as okay, I'm just going to claim this bluff openly, and that's what I'm going to be bluffing. You could also think about them as, I'm going to bluff this, and if bluffing this doesn't work, I might fall back into something else. Or you could think of them in terms of, I'm going to bluff something, but it's not the role I'm actually bluffing. I'm actually going to be bluffing something else. It's going to take a day or two for me to start outing this to people. And I'm going to out it in a way that makes people think, oh, I'm trusting you. Maybe you're you can do a lot with that as a bluff.
And off of that, if you're planning to fall back into it later, hey, tell your storyteller. Like, is Dreamer on the script? Is Ravenkeeper on the script? Is anything that can see a role, is Undertaker on the script? Like, let your storyteller know that you are going to be falling back into Poppy Grower later, so that they show you as the right thing to the Dreamer. Your storyteller cannot read your mind and might think that the bluff you're going for is the one that you're saying out loud. Help your storyteller help you.
I'm not sure I have anything else about bluffing Poppy Grower, to be honest.
Yeah, I just want to once again reemphasize, it's a bluff that requires the game to look like a Poppy Grower game for it to be believed, most of the time. Which means, like I said, either use it as part of coordination with your evil team, where you guys then vote like it's a Poppy Grower game, even though it's not, or fall back into it because you look at day one voting and it goes, yeah, people believe this is a Poppy Grower game. I know I've already said that, but I think for this bluff, That is really important. It's not a bluff that you can use information to sell, right? It's not a bluff where you bluff a fortune teller, yes, on someone who's just the right amount of suspicious, and then town kills them in Final 3 for you. It's a bluff that, because the character actually being in play fundamentally changes how the game is played, you can only bluff it if you're trying to trick the good players into believing you as this bluff and carry through to the end. If the game is actually being played in a popular-ish way, by accident or coincidence or by intentional play acting as if it's a popular game from your fellow evils. But look at the situation of the game and pivot into or out of popular accordingly. If you look around day one and go, and no one's going to believe this is a popular game. Someone was nominated in a weak nomination and immediately got 11 votes on them. Maybe I'd back into Ravenkeeper tonight. You have to be flexible with popular blocks, knowing when to take them and when to abandon them.
And it's like a core piece of bluffing in general is that you want to bluff as something that advantages you. So even if it looks like maybe it is a poppy grower game, if it's day 3 and you're thinking about like, oh, I think I can fall back into poppy grower here, and you're a minion, think about whether that's going to make your demon look evil. Think about whether this bluff might be better for your demon to fall back into if they're not in a state, if their bluff's not stable or they're not being trusted. Think about, don't just take it because it's there. Think about who could use it best and what worlds you can paint with it. Unlike a bluff that gives information, Poppygrower can't really be used to, it can be used to confirm a world, like Emma said, can't be used to create a world. And so it's often better on a demon later in the game if it looks like a Poppygrower, because as a minion, you really want to be a demon candidate. You really want to be able to get executed in Final 3. Shall we move on to storytelling? So I accidentally didn't load the right version of Rotting Moors, which is the script that Ruth wanted to use.
How do you find a script for the Poppygrower, you ask? I don't know where it is. There's no sex of violence with a Poppygrower on it. Because TPI hasn't released Midnight in the House of the Damned yet.
Whoops.
It's not this is literally public information. So it public since the Kickstarter. There's a spreadsheet that was released on the Kickstarter rules log that had all of the Kickstarter characters with the addition they were assigned to. Poppygrower was assigned to Midnight in the House of the Damned. Steve Leeway is also referred to as a Midnight character in interviews.
Yeah.
So
we all know it's going to be on Midnight. Or dusk.
So it's Midnight. Midnight is the script. There's no home script yet for the Poppygrower. What are you looking for in a Poppygrower script? Well, you're looking for evil players who don't need to know who each other are to be effective. That is the number one thing you need on a Poppygrower script. If your minion suite is Poisoner, Pit Hag, Witch, Assassin, this probably wasn't the right script for a Poppygrower to be on it. Because all those minions sort of need to know who their demon is to be effective. And in 2 of their cases, can kill their demon by mistake by being ineffective, by not knowing who they are.
That seems like
so
a
what
problem.
minions synergize well with Poppygrower? Scarlet Woman.
Scarlet Woman is
Goblin.
great with Poppygrower.
Wizard. Mastermind.
Baron.
Baron, sure.
Marionette.
Vigor Mortis.
Probably okay.
Yeah, Marionette's great. Any others?
Anything that doesn't kill. Probably not Vizier. Vizier, because it's announced, directly hard counters the Poppy Grower mechanically. I don't mind a hard counter every now and then, but probably not much fun for the Poppy Grower.
I mean, on the other hand, like then a bunch of good players are probably going up to that Vizier and being like, "Hey, don't kill me, I'm your demon." Like, and they don't know if a Poppy Grower is in play. Like, I feel like every game I've seen where Poppy Grower is on script and there's a Vizier in play, the Vizier gets multiple demons come up to
That
them.
might be okay.
It might.
Okay. The other thing I would say with Poppy Grower scripts is it's a very strong townsfolk. It probably doesn't need to be on a script with 36 other very strong townsfolk.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. And it probably wants a bit of misinformation to counter whatever strong townsfolk you do put with it. I think it quite likes not necessarily, I think it does quite like demons that poison, but I don't necessarily think that rules out damaging outsiders, right? Things like Plague Doctor, Sweetheart, the does something bad on death kind of outsiders. I think it prefers to have mostly townsfolk that don't have directed information. Also, I think you always have to have some, but like fortune teller, dreamer, village idiot, those can get quite a lot of information. Maybe village idiot less so, but they certainly want to be able to disrupt whatever that is. Flower girl, unless you've got Vortox again. So I think you just have to be careful about that balance.
I also things that make people claim in weird ways, it often goes well with, like obviously like damsel, mutant, like who are maybe looking a lot like the minions who do not have bluffs. The Serenovis, like who on day 3, right after the Poppy Grower dies, someone changed their claim. Like, did they do that because they're Serenad, or did they do that because they have new information? Those go really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, other townsfolk that like to hide can frequently work both Poppy Grower.
Yeah, demon banes, farmers, things like that.
Outsiders that like to hide, but politicians can work well with Poppy Growers.
Mm-hmm.
There's also a lot of interesting thing for like, when do the good characters give information to the evil team as well as the good team about who they're looking for? Like, that savant info, if the savant doesn't think about a Poppy Grower being in play, maybe that's maybe if that's shared publicly, that gives the evil team a clue who to go talk to. The Shugenja, if that comes out publicly, like stuff like that can be really helpful for evil teams to find each other earlier.
I also think Poppy Grower likes to have a couple of you start knowing roles that might be willing to die, and reasons for players to maybe want to do that. So, we've got Steward and Cannibal on this one. Those are, maybe Noble, Steward, Cannibal to maybe collect that information. I think those are kind of good with Poppy Grower as well, because it gives the evil team a little buffer to like that there might be people who are going to be willing to die on day 1 that aren't necessarily on the evil team, or who might even be looking to feed themselves to a cannibal on the first day, who again aren't necessarily on the evil team. The other thing I think is worth mentioning is that even without, let's just say the town hasn't figured out it's a Poppy Grower game, the demon can still accidentally kill off minions in a Poppy Grower game. And so it's worth also thinking about roles that do, get quite a good bang for their buck for evil roles, and outsiders that, they're pretty substantially harmful when the demon does hit them, right? We got to mention a few specifically, but I think it's just really worth thinking about, hey, are these minions going to be able to do something, if they die? Are if they die fairly early in this game, are these minions going to have had an effect? Things like that. So this script is Rotting Moors 1.62, I think. It's an older version of Patter's script, Rotting Moors, which has a Poppy Grower on it. And it has a few of those things that we've talked about, right? It's got a strong minions in Poisoner Mezephiles, Baron Mezephiles,
Yeah,
and
and 3
Marionette.
of those are pretty self-sufficient.
Yeah.
Baron, Mezephiles, and Marionette don't really need to deal with the demon.
And if the Vigor kills their Poisoner, oops, how sad.
Yeah, I love Vigor Mortis with Poppy Grower. I do think it's like a nice little match between demon and minion, or a demon that doesn't mind killing its minions and doesn't know where they are. I think it's a nice little bonus for the evil team. Imp as well, like one way to combat a Poppy Grower is to start passing the night.
I mean, things scripts with Oho on it. I feel like there's a lot of Oho Poppy Grower scripts because the Oho's not going to accidentally kill their minions. And by the way, all to you Ohos out there, I suggest don't kill the Poppy Grower Knight too. Give it a minute. Like let them do their thing. You're gonna kill something like an oracle or an artist or something. Yeah. Just encouraging Ohos to let that go for a little bit and not immediately kill the Poppy Grower Knight too, because that's a big sign of an Oho game.
Yeah, I think Oho is something that's controversial with Poppy Grower. I don't think it's a problem at all. I know some people who are going to really hate it because they're like, well, just kill the Poppy. It's my interpretation of people who really hate it. It's probably offensive to those of you who hate it, but you should feel bad. It's a perfectly reasonable combination. Counterplay is good. That the Oho can counterplay the Poppy Grower doesn't mean the Oho will counterplay the Poppy Grower, even that they should counterplay the Poppy Grower. But the Poppy Grower is very strong, and the Oho generally not that strong.
It's pretty weak.
Like, let the Oho occasionally have its moment to shine, which is in Poppy Grower games.
Yeah.
The
Oho doesn't care if it kills. Like, the Oho doesn't care about the Poppy Grower. It can kill what it wants.
I would say Legion is probably the best team in my opinion with Poppy Grower because they look very similar in terms of how they weird up voting.
Yeah.
Which makes Poppy Grower more bluffable, which is good. And also because Legion doesn't care as much about the lack of coordination, which lessens out the harshness of the lack of coordination.
Yeah, specifically the kill coordination, right? Like the ST's choosing the kills in Poppy
I
Grower
don't care
there.
about the kill coordination. I'm never worried about the kill coordination as a Poppy Grower.
Sure.
As evil in a Poppy Grower game. I kill my minion, whatever. I killed my minion. It's not a big deal. They're just a minion in the first place. I killed my minions on purpose just because it's fun. But it's the coordination and information of bluffs, which Legion doesn't care about.
I'm at the concern of killing your demon. If you're Legion, it doesn't matter if you kill the demon because there's many of you. So, like, in the town, it doesn't matter as much who you vote on in a Legion game in terms of accidentally killing your demon, right? You don't have that risk of accidentally killing your demon.
All right,
let's do a bag.
Build the bag.
Yeah. So, you want to build a Poppy Grower bag. Well, we'll put the Poppy Grower in. We always do for these. You could, of course, leave it as a bluff, but we're not going to do that. Ruth, what's a starting point for a Poppy Grower bag? What's something you're thinking about?
Oh, I mean, I like. It's hard not to say Vigor is a fun one here. So that they don't have to care if they accidentally kill their Mezephiles or something.
Not like they ever had to.
All right, Emma. Not all of us are as gung-ho about killing our minions. Growth area.
I think that's pretty fair.
Yeah, I would say I try to avoid Nadashi Poppy Grower because Nadashi poison Poppy Grower is just sort of meh all around.
Yeah, it can be awkward.
It is like can backfire on the evil team pretty easily.
Yeah,
it's just sort of meh.
Leech can be awkward as well if you've hosted a minion, especially if they are kind of flailing about and looking suspicious.
Yeah, especially if they're Mezephiles, who's probably going to be outing evil to someone.
Yeah, and I think there's also kind of, Leech really wants a coordinated evil team. They do want the evil team to know who not to get killed and who not to frame. And that makes it tricky with Poppy Grower, so.
Yeah, minion-wise, I'd probably avoid Poisoner in a Poppy Grower setup. I'd probably stick with Baron, Mez, and Marionette, but I don't think it matters super much. which of those three, though, I'd lean Mez Baron.
I would lean Mez Baron as well.
I like Mez Baron. I do want to say for the record, once on this, I think this exact version of this script, I was a demon, I was a leech, and the poisoner hit me night 2, and I didn't successfully kill anyone, and it was very funny, and everyone laughed, and like, it wasn't, I lost a kill about it, and everyone was like, "Oh, it's a Puppy Crow game with the poisoner," but that was fine. It was a really fun game anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it can
happens.
be fun, but it's a little harsh on evil, I think.
Yeah.
The poisoner.
Yeah.
I think the Baron and the Mez is nice, and of course that makes 4 of our selections, well, 3 of our selections anyway for us, because we're going to get a Plague Doctor, a Recluse, and a Mutant in here. And I think that's going to be really interesting in a Poppy Grower game most of the time, right? You have a Mutant that's trying to hide, you have a Recluse that can look evil to a whole bunch of good abilities and, misdirect, and you have a Plague Doctor that could drop in, a useful poisoning later, or even a, new Jinx marionette that makes one of the demon's neighbors, poisoned or marionette at some point in the game, lose their information.
And we all love Vigor poisoning a townsfolk off a Recluse.
Yeah,
it's just fun.
So, what do we do? What do we do here for town? So we've got a very powerful Poppy Grower. Town has lost some townsfolk to the very powerful Baron. Evil's going to get an extra player with the Mezephiles.
I think we're ready to. We do need to make it for some outsiders because the Vigor removes
you're right.
one of those.
The Vigor removes an outsider, so we could put in the Drunk and remove one of Plague Doctor, Recluse, and Mutant. I'd quite like to leave Mutant, just since we talked about.
Yeah, I think Plague Recluse Mutant is fine.
Yeah.
I think between Mez and Baron, we've done a lot of damage to the good team to counteract the Poppy Grower. So I think we are can be a little less vigilant about making sure the good team's not overloaded.
Yeah.
If we want Poisoner Marionette, I probably want to say, okay, do we really need the $4 impact Town Crier and Farmer all in play? But with this Evil Suite, I think we are a little less restriction what we pick for our other good characters.
Yeah, I would be inclined to put in two or three of those big info roles here. I think there's a lot of value in doing that. I'd probably lean Fortune Teller, maybe Fortune Teller, Town Crier, Oracle would be kind of 3 big info roles I would put here. I'd hesitate with the empath just because the Vigor is really, really stuck on this setup. And so they could just be a little bit feels bad for the Vigor to get stuck in a day 1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking that I like Oracle here, which can be fun if the Vigor does kill a minion and then they find out an Oracle number.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's certainly some counterplay with that, and then probably I think a Farmer is pretty interesting here too. We've got extra outsiders. The Farmer can pass to an outsider. If we are having a balance issue, it gives us some space to let the good team breathe, confirm a player. There's not a ton of confirmation on this.
Yeah,
I feel like leaving
Fisherman
Pixie is a. Sorry,
I think Fisherman is strong here.
Yeah, I think so.
It's also one of the better Mez turns in the world, so that's a nice thing.
I feel like leaving Pixie out is nice to explain double claims that the minions get into.
Yeah, I like that. I don't mind the minions getting caught here either. They're not that important in terms of the setup. So I think the Town Crier being able to identify minions is probably nice and strong here for the good team. Lets them get a shot at Mezephiles potentially on day 2 if the Mez didn't give out their word, although they're likely to have given it out on day 1 per our tier list conversations. But it lets them hunt down evils, and if they're going to be outnumbered by a Mez turn player, it's good for them to get minions out of the game early.
Mm-hmm. Maybe also not a cannibal in, just to decrease the pressure on the first few days of the game for people to be executed when it's going to be even more obvious that if the Poppy Grower voting pops up.
Mm-hmm. We need one more townsfolk.
I thought we were going to take Mutant out. Am I wrong?
No, we decided to leave those 3 and not have a Drunk.
Oh, okay.
The Vigor will spread some poison potentially, so.
Well, we need one more townsfolk token anyway.
Yeah.
Juggler?
Sure.
Yeah, I like Juggler.
I just love Juggler.
Nice little pile of information.
All right. So, in some of these episodes, we then sort of do some tinkering with reminder tokens and ask scenario questions relevant to the character. But Poppy Grower, there aren't so many of those.
Mhm.
But I do think this is a relatively balanced Poppy Grower bag.
Yeah, I think it's pretty balanced. There's a lot of players here who aren't going to be able to claim to the juggler or aren't going to, want to claim to the juggler directly or aren't going to be juggled. So the juggler information should be useful but not overpowered. Oracle's going to help them track the vigor. The information getting out can also help the evil team, so it encourages a little bit of information security from the good team. I think maybe the only like kind of two questions that are worth asking here are first off, in this game, and it doesn't sort of matter how, maybe it matters how deep we are in this game, but giving something like fisherman information, and, we could talk about general or something else to some extent, giving fisherman an information in a Poppy Grower game, how much do you want to, when you're giving that advice, let on that it's a Poppy Grower game or that it's not a Poppy Grower game?
It's entirely game dependent, I think. Fisherman is not something that you should start the game being like, this is going to be my fish advice. When the fisherman comes and asks me, fisherman should be adaptable to the situation you find yourself in.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that.
I also think it's, I don't know, I think a lot of the time the Poppy Grower has enough confirmation from that voting, and if they don't, then that means that the evil job is doing a good job obscuring it with their voting. So I feel like I would be not super inclined to give fishermen advice that backs up a Poppy Grower, because I think they've already done their thing. Yeah, they've already done their thing, and if the evil team is counterplaying it well, good for them.
Yeah, and I asked this question mostly because I think there can be a tendency sometimes to, like, for storytellers to, like, double down on the thing that's working most in good teams' favor. And if you're giving fishermen information in a Poppy Grower game, like you've both said, the Poppy Growers sort of already done their thing. Maybe look at other things that can be useful for the good team to think about, can be good for the fishermen to think about, rather than sort of doubling down on something that's already kind of believed or known to be true or has already kind of affected the game in a certain way.
Mhm.
I think Poppy Grower can be a little bit attractive for savant information, for overbalancing general information one way or the other, for giving fishermen advice. I would encourage, as Ruth and Emma have said, maybe think in other lines of play. Yeah, I mean, beyond that, maybe we could talk about like what kind of Plague Doctor ability to get. But again, it's a Poppy Grower game. Is there any point where you maybe would poison the Poppy Grower? Like you would take the Poisoner ability and poison the Poppy Grower here?
View was really struggling, and the Plague Doctor died, and had announced I was using the optional rule. Sure.
Yeah.
I think that's the only time I'd do that.
Yeah, I think Evil would
Or you
have to
could
be in
just-
a pretty deep bind for me to ever kind of not make them hunt down the Poppy Grower themselves.
I mean, or you're taking the marionette ability and removing the Poppy Grower that way with this particular setup,
Yeah, that's fair.
where they're right next to the vigor.
Yeah, I think I'd be more inclined to do that one than the Poisoner one. Poisoner one just feels like each me.
Okay. That's pretty reasonable, I think. Yeah, I guess there's not much else to say about this group.
Yeah, like the important things for storytelling of Poppy Grower are all stuff that have pregame mostly. It's making sure your bag is balanced, but the fact that evils have a significant disadvantage. It's leaving aside bluffs that are going to be useful for the evil team, and particularly a Poppy Grower game like Pixie. It's putting in some of the more self-sufficient minions like Baron and Mazephiles that don't need support from their demon as much. This is all where the Poppy Grower storytelling boat is. It's not really on in-game decision, because your in-game decisions played to the Poppy Grower are, when the Poppy Grower dies, don't forget to wake the evil team. That's an important one,
important.
I've story told Poppy Grower a lot less than you guys. I feel very safe assuming. But something that I feel like I learned the last time I did it was make sure that you've given yourself ways that you can rebalance the game during it. Like, make sure that your setup allows for things that will let you help the evil team if they're really struggling. The last time I story told a Poppy Grower, the witch killed the demon. that was rough. There was a Scarlet Woman. Evil team won that game, but like there was a period in the middle where it was looking really rough with evil on evil violence. Make sure that you have things you can do to help balance that.
All right, then. I don't have any sort of final wrap-up thoughts about the
I
Poppy
do have one last wrap-up thought about the Poppy Grower, which is that you often see Poppy Grower on scripts with lunatic. And this is another part of the ongoing effort to confuse and make lunatics believe that they're demons very, very deep into the game. A position that Emma and I have largely discussed in the past of being not that important for the storyteller to do. That said, if you are the storyteller who has shown a lunatic a Poppy Grower world, whether or not the Poppy Grower is in play, do remember, that in theory, at some point, the Poppy Grower would die and they would learn an evil team. If you take them into Final 3 without ever letting them learn an evil team, that's totally fine, but they will have to believe that there's a Poppy Grower in play as you are trying to, they think they are the demon them. So, just something to be aware of, when you're Poppy Grower faking a lunatic out.
All right.
Oh, well.
With that, Ruth, this is the time where we extend a red carpet to our guests to say whatever they want to, as long as it's not inappropriate.
Oh no, this is too much power. Okay. Wait, sorry, about
Anything.
still Poppy Grower.
No, you can promote yourself, you can promote anything, you could
do a dance.
Say what you want. This is your time.
Oh dear. Hello, I am from Rose City Clocktower. We're out of Portland, Oregon, and we run games twice a month in person. If you're in Portland, whether because you live nearby or you're visiting, come play with us. I'm going to leave this and immediately go to the Paladins League. I'm very excited about it, to storytell some. Come play when you're in Portland. We've got a really lovely group. Rose City Clocktower, and you can find us at rosecityclocktower.com.
Portland's a great city with great food and great coffee and great people.
All right, and with all that, may your scenarios stay grim. Bye-bye.
See you, everybody.